I think the classic role will probably fade away slowly. Either you're a very strong product generalist builder, or you're like a very strong expert on some topics. All designers are pushing PRs in production with Cursor, while many of them had no engineering background.
This is awesome.
Which is insane.
Yeah,
it's
but
really
awesome.
insane. Hundreds of PRs already. If you have been following Alan, we have a Marmot. Now this is fully AI generated. And we have a tool internally, anyone can say, I want a Marmot riding a horse with this sticker with a dragon in the background, and you get this. A full practice that got completely revolutionized in like 12 months. We have full transparency, so really everyone knows everything. I had to make one post in Slack saying, actually we go for it. And then it's one of those examples of like black magic at Allen. It just works. Like roadmaps get reprioritized, people get aligned, and that's beautiful.
Bonjour and welcome back to The French Product. Thomas Rolfe is the Chief Product Officer at Allen, Stanford-trained, former PM at Facebook, and the person who helped take Allen from a scrappy startup to one of France's biggest unicorns. What you just saw is the result of 7 years of obsessive focus on culture. Most companies are trying to figure out how to add AI to their workflow. Allen did it backwards. They built a company with no meetings, full transparency, and teams that can pivot with just one Slack post. And then they added AI. That's why designers can ship code, that's why their entire brand runs on AI-generated assets, and that's why they can move faster than companies twice their size. Thomas is going to walk us through the real trade-offs, what's actually working, and what he thinks happens to PMs when the tools get this good. It's one of the most honest conversations I've had about the future of product. Let's get into it. Thomas, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
So I know you've worked in London, San Francisco, and Paris. I wanted to understand, like, you as a human being, what shaped your product mindset across these very different culture, especially starting up in San Francisco?
Sure. So I think beyond the geography and the different cities, what also shaped my thinking on this is different company sizes. So I'll give a bit more context. But I actually started in a startup in San Francisco where we're about 50 to 100 people. Then I moved to Meta, so huge company. Huge. And then Alan from about 30 people to like 700 now. So it's not only geography, but also sizes. And I would say two things that really stuck with me over time is I actually started at a startup called Work4 that's changed name and it's called CISA now. But anyway, and over there, I had a role that is closer to what we can call product owner right now. And I didn't know at the time. Yeah, I was a product manager, but really my time was writing somewhat detailed specs, being somewhat far from clients, and realizing very late that we didn't really have market fit and the company didn't do well. So that was painful. And that really, really kind of impacted how I thought about product and the somewhat failure of this first experience. I learned a ton. The team was amazing. There was this feeling that we could have done so much more. And then I moved to Meta in London. And so I moved both geography and sizes. And there I found a very different way of operating with PMs or product leaders being much closer to the business, to the objectives, and then giving a lot more ownership to engineers and designers to build what's needed. Give them a lot more responsibility, understanding the business, etc. And so as PMs, you're not writing specs or moving Jira tickets. You're giving context, aligning on goals, collaborating in a much more like flexible way with engineering and design. And that's really what made me fall in love for real with product management and what I've been looking for ever since.
Oh, nice. And so how did you get to Allen? Because you went from a smallish, super dynamic company to then Meta, who's really huge, and then coming back, and it was the premises of Allen, because obviously now I think you guys are like the 6th biggest unicorn in France, but like very huge, one of the biggest. But at the time when you joined, it was smaller. So what made you move to like that much from Facebook at the time to Allen?
So one of the reasons, and she'd love that I say that, is actually my wife, who wanted to move back to Paris. So we moved back to Paris, and that's also the reason why we moved to London. So it actually got started by a personal reason, because once you're at Meta, it's somewhat hard to leave. You're well paid with great people around you, etc. And so I was actually very grateful to have kind of this push to really question what I wanted to do, and I had this itch that I wanted something slightly different, and I really wanted to go to a smaller company because I loved my first experience at a small company, feeling a bit more, having a deeper understanding of everything that's happening, and feeling my personal impact a bit more. So I wanted to go back to a small company, but with a big ambition, because I didn't want to just be at a small company. That was one of my criteria. The first criteria was actually finding a mission, a topic I was passionate about. At Facebook, I learned a ton. We made a ton of money for Facebook, and I was working on advertising. And advertising, like putting ads on people's phones, there are a ton of good reasons to do it. It's a business model for the press, etc. But in the end, like it's still ads on phones. And I was struggling a bit more with that, and then Cambridge Analytica and privacy and fake news. So I was less and less aligned with why I was actually going to work. And the third one was I wanted to find a team that would give me the same feeling that I had at Facebook or Meta at the time, of very smart people, working hard but having big ambition and having the PM role that we just discussed. And I met Alan, actually knew by chance one of the earliest engineers, and so I pinged him when I was coming back to France, one of my very good friends, and it was actually great timing, so a lot of luck, like often in this case. And they were looking for their first PMs at the time, and very quickly, and I figured out that Alan was checking most of those boxes. It was a risk because it was very small, but got lucky, and now I'm here.
That's awesome. And so you started as a PM, and now you're leading product. What changed in your view of what, great product leadership looks like?
I mean, that's a big question. I think that's more like my personal journey as a product manager and as a leader. So I think I joined Alan thinking I was able to do good product, and actually met people that did great product management. From the initial team, Jean-Charles, the CEO, Edward, the initial designer, the engineers, that was there at first. Like, I think when you are in a very talented team, 0 to 1 startup, you really understand what a minimum viable product is, what challenging real assumptions of an established market. So first, it really changed my thinking on truly good product management and product decisions in a regulated industry. So at first, and then I took other roles internally, etc. And over time, for the past 2 years, maybe soon 3, I took a different role, which is closest to a management role, even if we don't have so much management at Allen, that we call product lead, closest to chief product officer. And that to me is really stretching different skills. And so I learned a lot about myself and about how to build teams instead of building great products. So first building great products and then building great teams. I think a couple insights that are very obvious when you listen to them, but the level of the people you hire, like what we call talent density, is everything. You make one good hire, it changes the trajectory of part of the company, and it's extremely hard. It's a mix of luck, timing, fit with the company, etc. So that's really tough. And then it's about finding your leadership skill as you take this different role, your leadership voice or posture, and it's about aligning who you are, how you like to communicate, what you're good at when you're not that good at, with what you're doing. And so for me, it took a bit of time to find how I want to communicate with the team, being vulnerable on the topics I want, and sharing it this way, putting some small rituals that I find powerful in a remote setup, etc. So a lot of, and we'll probably go deeper into that, but a lot of tactics on how to be a leader in this kind of new world post-COVID and remote, and finding your voice as you kind of lead a team in a fast-growing company. And that's quite a ride.
Yeah, well, when you talked about obvious things, honestly, I've had several guests until now, and when we speak about the obvious things, I'm always amazed. I mean, listening to users, that's what we do. That's our essence. And I've had so many people say we have examples of product people that don't listen to users, and you know, sometimes stating the obvious is very basic, but when you stick to it and when we actually have rituals to do so, such as, like, you know, having a focus on talent, that helps out, and that makes the whole difference. And again, you guys made it up to unicorn status, so there has to be a reason. That's part of it.
Fair enough.
If you had to describe Alan's product philosophy in one sentence, what would it be?
It's a good question. We have, I think, 12 or 15 leadership principles.
Oh, wow.
So I'll try and pick the one that matches the best.
Mm-hmm.
I think what sticks with me the most is really this idea of dreaming big and working backwards. It's like one of our principles. And it's really about not being afraid to take on topics that people expect will fail on. And just launching a new entrant is kind of insane. I was not there at the time. I joined 2 years later.
Yeah.
But everyone told the initial team that they would fail. And we keep on doing that repeatedly to, like, not listen to experts, dream big on what could be, and then walk backwards to, like, if we really wanted to do that, what would be the first step? And it's what we did on launching an entrance in France, what we did on expanding to new countries and as an insurer, which is really tough, what we just did on launching with partners a new service on occupational health called Médecine du Travail in France. And so we actually, I think, have somewhat of a special to take, like, very hairy, messy topics, and then we still do it, but we start small.
Yeah.
That's really a big thing. It's the same on deciding that we can simplify a complex topic like health insurance, and we can have a delightful experience for something that is so complicated.
Yeah.
And so what if health insurance was simple? And then you go extremely deep on, like, the health code, legal, whatever, and then you try to extract it and make something simple, step by step. And it's really this idea of, like, big ambition and then going extremely deep and starting with a small step and seeing where it goes. And usually it works well, but it requires a shit ton of work, to be honest.
I can imagine. It's always, I mean, that has to be something from Steve Jobs, but it's hard to make things simple. That has to be something like Apple related.
Yeah, probably.
But I think it's very true. Like, when you want to make something super simple and obvious, you have to really dig deep and then work a lot. And the end result looks simple, but usually when it's intuitive, it means that there's been a lot of work done. It's not done in 2 seconds.
And especially in a regulated industry, I think like, we have to work with so many constraints. That it's really there's something beautiful with constraints, but it's also very hard on, like, clarifying just how much you're going to be reimbursed if you go to the dentist or if you want new glasses is actually extremely complex in France because we've invented so many rules. And so you need to go super deep and see what's the best explanation and kind of experience on top of that, which is a good problem.
I can imagine. So focusing more on Alan itself, it's like you guys are known for autonomy, asynchronous work. What's something that outsiders usually get wrong about how that functions internally?
I'll take the second one first, like asynchronous work. It's true that it's a huge part of how we work. And we've pushed very hard on we have no meetings, which is mostly true. And it's also the hardest thing to get right. But one thing that is usually not fully understood outside is, like, we do meet at times. We're just very strict on the when. And so the short story is we do no meetings. It's a bit extreme. The reality, when you have 10 minutes to explain it, is that we do no meetings to share information. Information sharing is in writing and async, or you do a quick video, which works well as well in some cases. So information sharing, like status updates, etc. And we don't make decisions in meetings. And so if you take your calendar and you remove those two, usually you gain a lot of time. But there are still some that are left. We still on the one hand, we do like all hands for the whole company frequently. That's a type of meeting. We do one-on-one coaching, which is our equivalent of like management at Allen. Each team usually has like a weekly sync to align on priorities of what we should be doing. And we have some formats to work together. One we call pairings, which is if you tackle a new kind of complex, messy, ambiguous topic, we push two, max 3 people to get on a call or get on the whiteboard if they're in the same office, kind of start breaking it down. And then we go in writing, outline the decision, make the decision in writing. But on this first phase, it can be very powerful. And so the whole thing is we are very opinionated and mindful of when we meet versus not, which gives a lot of time back to actually think about problems or be in control of your agenda, work asynchronously, etc. But it takes a bit of time to explain. What is true that it's a real big change. And what is also true is once you work this way, it's pretty hard to go back. So I don't know how I'll ever do it, but that's a different topic.
No, it is a different topic. But honestly, coming out of an experience where they loved their meetings and you could feel, that it wasn't bringing too much value. Like some of those meetings, like when I start thinking that I'm not getting any value out of the meeting, like it's hard, like after 15 minutes, it's hard to stay another 45 when it's a 1 hour meeting.
On 1 hour, it's insane.
Yeah.
And it compounds every week.
Yeah.
So
I can feel you. And you talked a little about job titles, hierarchy. You said there's not that much management. What's the hardest part of building a system that, without hierarchy and is there anything where you failed at first?
Yeah. So there's a misconception in some of it, in the sense that we don't have a strict hierarchy with a lot of layers like other companies. We don't have like a C-level, 3 directors, like 2 VPs, 3 directors, middle management, etc. It's a lot more flexible than this and much fewer layers, or we barely have any. We do have our hierarchy in the sense of clarifying who is accountable for some decisions. And the bigger the decision, the more senior you are, roughly. Okay. And so on each decision, the spirit is we have a concept that is called LOC, which is called close to the RACI, RACI, where we've defined who is the lead of the decision, who owns the decision, who contributes, and who is informed, somewhat classic. And so someone is the lead for the decision. And we aim to push that as much as possible so that there's some sense of who makes the decision, because otherwise if everyone is just running around, or if not, it's not clear who makes the decision, we can really slow down. That's the spirit. Now the reality is we decentralize this ownership and decision making a lot, like a ton. And it's extremely powerful because then teams have a lot of autonomy. Like we give a goal to a team and they can run with it, and they can even hire some people themselves, etc. But we have the flip side of this strength as often, which is we then struggle at times when we need a centralized decision, or those gets harder. And so it can be about, we have those 3 teams that have to collaborate and go in slightly different directions. So I think compared to other companies, we're probably slower at escalating because we don't have like this very strict hierarchy at clarifying the decision as fast as possible, etc. So that's something we're building, this muscle of escalation, for instance, a bit more right now. And similarly, like it also shows up in our experience at times of like teams that have slightly different goals, slightly different contexts, etc. But at some point, there's one screen in the app, and what do we put there? And if each team just ships their concepts, we ship the org, and it's a nightmare. Yeah. And so, since our structure is not super rigid, it's not very clear. Like, oh, it escalates here, and then this person we are a bit slower at making those calls as well. We had a recent examples and some topic on navigation, like should it be 1 tab, 2 tabs, 3 tabs, and what goes where. So. Not like decentralizing is amazing at empowering people. Hiring very smart people that want autonomy is a huge part of why we can attract such strong talent. Yeah, it comes with the flip side of when you need to centralize, we're a bit slower or there's a bit more friction. I think we'll take that trade-off any day, and we keep on trading it. So
Yeah, but it's good because that means you do get autonomy, but you, again, like if you focus on the hiring process and you know that you can trust people, then again, like you're trusting them. So they're autonomous, they can make their own decisions, but they're accountable on the counter side. And that makes sense. This is how it goes. But it's really good that, you know, that theoretical parts and conceptual part that you were able to actually implement. And again, we can see that it works. You guys are pretty famous for that. So I've known people who have worked at Allen, and it's definitely true. So yeah, kudos for that. Getting back to the culture, do you have an example of a moment where you know, the culture that you designed actually surprised you in a good or a bad way?
a good way is very top of mind. I think, as in, so a bit of Allen history. Last year and this year, we had two major wins when we won large ministries, so the Ministère de l'Écologie last year and the Ministère des Finances this year. And for us, it's pretty tricky to manage in a product roadmap because you have this binary outcome of either you win it or not. If you win it, it's a big project for the whole company on deploying it with people on the customer success side, etc. And on product, we have a huge roadmap to deliver it because there are like quite a few specificities, etc. And so this fork in the road and handling this ambiguity for months, knowing you may need to trigger it or not, is pretty tricky as a leader. It can create quite a bit of stress. And I was amazed at the resilience of our culture when we actually needed to pivot. We had
nice.
Because everyone, like, one part of our culture is that we have full transparency. So really, everyone knows everything or can have access to everything. And so my role is to amplify the right information at the right time, but there's no secret. And so it was really about over communicating that this may happen and this is why, and it may hurt on this and that topic, but it's important for all answer. And so with this transparency, everyone had context up front. And it's not like, oh, by the way, news, we just won this deal, we need to pivot the whole roadmap. It was already kind of built in and integrated by the teams. And then people have so much autonomy and had so much context that for me, I was really, really amazed that I had to make one post in Slack saying, actually, we go for it. Maybe I'm paraphrasing a bit, but it's roughly what happened. And then it's one of those examples of like black magic at Allen. It just works. Like, roadmaps get reprioritized, people get aligned, and that's beautiful. It's really this combination of transparency plus ownership. I think in another company it would have been a lot more frictional and probably slower. And I think it's one of our strengths. Like if you give full context, you have very smart people, give them autonomy. Yeah. Sometimes you disagree on something, and then you have to make a decision and then move forward. But often it's just like, this is the obvious thing. And so if you have smart people that have context, then we'll all go in the right direction, and it's awesome. And so this is really quite amazing for me and for the company, of like being able to move quickly as a group because of our structure.
Yeah, and see the impact of your culture. Because again, it's something that's not tangible. So usually not tangible. When you actually see like the impact, means that what you've tried to implement actually works. Yeah. Super nice.
And then one example that didn't work, probably related to what we discussed, like when centralization is too late. It's a good example of like you have two teams that want to do something, but it collides in the app, and we take too long to actually solve it. That's one example. And the answer we have is escalation, as I said, but we're building this, so we'll see.
Yeah, but the trade-off, you said you'd make it any day.
We'd keep making it. But as usual with culture and organization, it's like there are trade-offs and you take them, but you have to overcompensate on what doesn't work. And I think as the company grows, what's tricky is, especially if you grow quickly, either in business size or in team headcount or both, the trade-offs you made a year ago may be very different nowadays, and you may take time to figure it out. That's really tricky, and that's why we have a big value of editing the company as well, saying what was right 12 months ago, 6 months ago may not be right now. We do want to stick to our core values, but the way we implement them can change. And so whether it's like clarifying who makes the decision, clarifying escalations, or like organization, etc., is really something we have to think about quite often, because our context, like our constraints, change quite a lot as well.
Yeah, with all these like working asynchronously, not having too many meetings, how, when written communication is key, how do you keep the human connection like important and alive?
Yeah, that's a big topic. And like historically, if we go back to the roots of Allen was not a remote company.
Mm-hmm.
Allen was 5 days a week in the office,
Mm-hmm.
drinks often. And so we were working asynchronously
Mm-hmm.
on decisions in writing, etc. But we were also seeing each other at lunch, and it was a small company, so
Yeah.
lunch and drinks, etc. So we had this emotional connection anyway. And then COVID happened, and then along the way we also scaled the company quite a bit, and we started hiring remote. And so I think to me it's the combination of remote plus async and in writing that is tough, because if you can have the same culture but be in the office, it's kind of weird, but if you are strict about it, it's really awesome and efficient, in my opinion. And so in typical Allen fashion, honestly, we looked at the problem, outlined options. We have very rational and analytical in our culture on such topics. And so what we do now is we try to counterbalance this. Similar discussion, like have a trade-off, and so we decide to be mostly asynchronous and in writing. And so what we do is we have a few concepts. Big one for us is Onsites, and so roughly every quarter, we bring everyone to our headquarters in Paris, and it's for 2-3 days, and then teams are there to spend time together. It's a mix of social things like social events of like having lunch or dinner together, workshops, but also time with your peers as PMs or designers. And so we have kind of this important time to do it. There's another time where it's actually a hackathon.
Yeah.
So teams building together, exploring new technology, new projects once a year for a couple of days as well. And then there's a wider, what we call the check-in, which is the offsite for the full company, about once a year. So we have these specific events that make sure that we push people to build the connections so that there's a minimum of trust and ability to give feedback and to have tough conversations afterwards. And the second thing I would say is, at least in my team, I really push for spending a lot of time in the office during the onboarding. Like for me, there's really like a minimum you need to get to in terms of trust you establish with people, understanding of how the company works by being there. And so the latest hires that we made kind of came quite often to the office at first, in the first 2 months especially, even if they're remote, to kind of get this black magic, as I said, and to establish relationships with key stakeholders so that then it goes better. Mix of all that.
Yeah, gotcha. And so people who are like, where do you usually see PMs struggling when they join Allen?
I think the hardest one is the idea that we put proposals out to be discussed in public very quickly. In many companies, the playbook is I do a one-on-one with all my stakeholders, one after the other. We whiteboard something, etc., and I pre-align everyone, and then we have a meeting where we all agree on what was already decided one-on-one with everyone.
Yeah,
roughly the playbook in many companies.
That happens. Yeah,
Allen's very different. Is I do my homework on what's at stake. I open a discussion where I ping the relevant stakeholders, and we go at it and have a public discussion with everyone putting their point of views in writing, in public, and then I drive it to a decision. So it requires a lot more vulnerability of like, I don't know everything and tell me. It requires to kind of animate a discussion with strong opinions, with everyone saying everything. So public, in public, in writing, and vulnerability of what you don't know is tricky compared to kind of other PM playbooks. So that's one. And the other is not necessarily strictly for Allen, but I think nowadays, I think it's tough to be a remote PM. So depending on where PMs are versus their teams, building relationships and having the sense of how the team is doing, pace and giving context, all that is pretty tricky as a remote PM, in my opinion. So not only at Allen, but since we are quite remote, and async, it doesn't help at first.
There's one thing, obviously, that I'm digging, obviously, like everyone, a lot into AI, and this is something we've discussed, and I know you have opinions about hybrid PMs, and you've said that the future product person is probably going to be a hybrid. So, what do you mean by that? And you know, what's your opinion on the future of PM?
That's a hard question, but we think about it a lot at Allen, indeed, and I don't know if it's exactly hybrid, the term, but in essence, the idea is that the frontiers between the roles are fading out, and it's what a lot of leaders are saying, and I think it's pretty clear given the technology and the pushes happening right now. For us at Allen, it's something that we actually have started for a while. What we've had for the past year or two is we had this concept of acting as PM. And so what it means is we actually have teams with no PM, no product manager, but either a designer or even a researcher or an engineer on the team that takes on this PM hat. This PM responsibility is actually done by someone else. And because this person was the right person at the right time, had the skills of PMs, and actually it's a good topic of what is actually the PM skill, but at least on aligning stakeholders, like defining the vision and etc. And so we had more and more teams without PMs, and then it begs the question is like, what is a designer if designers are PM? And in some other cases where we have teams with no data scientists because we have someone else on the team to do it. Rarely we have teams without designers, but it can happen. So. And so for the past couple of years, we already have been pushing this idea of having leaner teams with more with fewer people with wider skills. And it's very exciting when it works because you have fewer people that move faster and you have less coordination overhead and they go deeper into their topics. And usually it's very high pace, high efficiency teams that love working together when it works well. When it doesn't, it's even worse. So it's kind of a high risk bet, high variance bet, high beta. But that's the idea. And so that's what we've been doing for a while. And now with kind of this push of AI, we think it's the time to push it even further because we'll have stronger tools that enable more people to be able to take on such roles. Right now, it was really a subset of people that are the most generalists. But we think like everyone will be able to be a stronger generalist in the future because one example for us is on data analytics, for instance. We now have an AI tool at Allen that you can chat with. It's called the Metabase Assistant. You chat with it and you just tell it, I want to understand how many people onboarded on this product last week in natural language. And it writes you the SQL query and then gives you the answer. And that's a simple query, but I think for me, I hadn't written SQL queries in like 2-3 years. Now I do it at least several times a month, I would say. And you don't need to understand which tables are there, which data schema is there. Complex joins are actually done when it's often a nightmare. So that's really an example of you used to need a data analyst or data scientist on the team. Now, like in 1 minute, you actually have the answer and you're a lot more empowered. And I think on design, it's somewhat the same on prototyping nowadays. We start using Lovable a lot more at Allen. And I think on pushing simple PRs, it's also similar. One good example at Allen right now, not on product managers, but something pushed by Alex and Ujala, our leads on engineering and design. They actually pushed all designers to get on Cursor. And now all designers are pushing PRs in production with Cursor, while many of them had no engineering background.
This is awesome.
Which is insane.
It's
really
awesome.
Insane. Hundreds of PRs already. And so you see this shifting, like designers push code and especially front-end code. PMs get back to analytics very easily because it gets easier. PMs prototype very fast. So designers can focus on other topics, and so all that gets mixed in the end. And so we really believe in that. Another example for us is we've been trying, and we're not there yet, but we've been trying to get better at having PMs closer to the go-to-market of their own products.
Yeah.
And this whole like PM, PMM, Airbnb branch SK idea, we've been toying with it. I don't think we're very successful at it, so that is actually a topic for us for next year, but we're getting better. But in a nutshell, like roles are blurring, and the wording we use internally more and more is like product builders. You're not a PM or a designer. You're like a product builder. And you have a strengths based on what you've done in the past, and on what you're not an expert on. You have AI tools, and on simple stuff, just use the AI, whether it's a prototyping tool or a chatbot or whatever, or just a GPT-ish solution. And what we're putting in place is, so you first have an AI. On top of that, if you're not sure because it's a very important topic, or if you want more help, we put an on-call. So you have the good example, like we have this meta-based assistant for data analytics. Behind that, you have a data on-call with someone that can help you if you need it. And then if that's not enough, then we staff like true experts on teams when really needed. And this escalation of AI, then on-call, then truly staffed is really something we'll start looking at more and more by team. And as we go, we expect we'll have like leaner teams that are like really supercharged with AI. The trick is how we handle this transition, but it's really ongoing and exciting for us.
Yeah. Well, it's cool that you mentioned that, because yesterday I actually commented on a designer from Conto that just pushed something into production with Cursor. Same thing. I think it was it replaces, on your iPhone, the camera button. And when you get close to a terminal, it actually switches to, do you want to pay with Conto, blah, blah, blah. And he pushed that super, super, super quickly and alone. And I think that's awesome. But, AI accelerated this, but I feel that there's other examples before where PMs were getting a little bit more hybrid. I mean, if you take Algolia or some technical products, that's where they had technical PMs, because honestly, they were really engineers in the first place, and then they took on a product role. But I mean, when your product is basically an API, you just have to be, you have to understand what developers need, and this is switching. It's the discussion usually is which is going to overpower, and I feel like every designers are asking themselves, will I die? Product managers are like, will I die? And developers are like, will I die? And I like what you phrased when you said the strengths, because I think it's going to be about that. It's going to be about adaptation over skill set, because everyone can have a specific skill set. And the rest, that's where you use AI to be augmented and not just,
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, that's super nice. And so, what do you think are the new skills or mindsets that, PM should start developing?
Good question. I think it reinforces the older kind of more essential skills on going deep with users and members and customers, because in the end, that's what matters. And then having intuition and a rational on what to build.
Yeah.
Like this is still extremely hard, and I think we are pretty far from an AI to solve that higher level problem. The AI will help like plan user interviews and summarize them and make a recommendation on what to do, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe actually next year it will also tell you what to build, and then tell Cursor to build it, and we'll go do something else. We're maybe still a bit far from it. I don't know how far, but I haven't seen it happen yet. So I think for a while, being very deep in kind of business context, user context, what truly matters, and then having what is called taste. I don't know if I like this overrated word, but intuition plus a rational on what to build. That's one. So keep on building this and seeing iterations and patterns on that. And then on the flip side, getting good at moving faster with AI tools and being flexible and testing new things, etc., so that you get the most of this augmented new world, as you said. So if you're very good at users plus also business context, kind of the classic there, and then the AI augmented new world, that's going to be great. That's one path. That's I would say the generalist path, like the future product builder path. I think that's very true. think there's also another path which will still need like very strong experts, but the expertise bar will be even higher. If you are an amazing platform PM, like very technical PM that helps kind of build the right data model and align the long-term business and product needs with the architecture, etc. I still think like and AI is probably pretty far from that. But those roles will be probably fewer, but extremely high leverage. So you also have like a lot of room for like very strong experts, but it's kind of this middle ground that most of us operate in right now that will get a bit more shifted. On either you're a very strong product generalist builder, or you're like a very strong expert on some topics. It's gonna be exciting. You can probably go back and forth between the two as well. But I think the classic role will probably fade away slowly.
Yeah, and there's a lot of hype, like in AI. Like you can see it. You just hang around LinkedIn and you get, I mean, there's a lot of hype. How do you separate the noise from the actual things that work, and how do you prepare for that?
A lot of it is following the trends and conviction. Alan, we got started on AI because Jean-Charles really had a big conviction based on testing GPT 3-ish and chats he had, and so he made a big push and went like all in pretty quickly. And so that was really on a hunch and understanding the technology and where it's going, and in general, like keeping on benchmarking capabilities and understanding where they are and anticipating a bit more where they are going is one of the keys. One example is for us, like one of the next frontiers for us next year is voice AI. Like right now we've been doing a lot of written AI products. We think next year, based on how we've been testing this year with good results, and I think next year technology will be there to really scale with voice on some topics, whether to accelerate sales or to answer customer questions or a range of topics. And so it's really about tinkering with the technology and having a sense of, is it too soon, too late? But you're never exactly right, but that helps. And then the other thing is also like closing LinkedIn and just working on your product, to be honest. There's a lot of hype. We remember like an announcement from Klarna on their savings on customer support, right? And it was pure hype, and 6 months later they did a 180, it's right. And we were working on the same topic, and we're like, sure, we'll see. And so we had big convictions that we can automate a lot of our customer support tickets with AI, and we've been grinding at it for like 18, 24 months. Now we are very happy because we get to about 45% of automation with very good satisfaction on member-initiated contacts, even on complex tickets for us, which in healthcare can be very complex. And it's been a big conviction that we want to go there because the tech is there, testing, iterating, and it's a grind like on those topics. Like tech changes, the approach changes, the learning change. So it's at some point it's a commitment, conviction, and then you gotta iterate, and give teams the right mandate and have the right talent for it. So that's that for us. I think tinkering with the technology ahead of time helps. Hackathon are also a good idea for us on getting a sense a bit earlier and letting teams explore quite a bit. But it's really hard on exploration versus reaping the fruits of what you're looking at. That's a real product leadership role. To be honest, I say all this. The reality is a lot more messy, a lot messier. It's like we don't have like this. Some companies do, probably big companies, consulting, I don't know, they have like this probably this analysis of technology, like maturity, whatever. Like for us, it's a lot more flexible.
Well, honestly, I had to write about something similar yesterday, and I posted it today on LinkedIn. You know the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the less skill you have at first, you start learning that skill, and then your confidence goes really high, and then it just drops, and usually it's afterwards that the curve goes up, and you're actually building and getting more experience, and that's where your confidence goes up. But you have this like valley
of despair.
Exactly, valley of despair. It's the peak of Mount Stupid and then valley of despair. And the problem with the imposter syndrome, because I was talking to a friend who I think is going to change his whole company. He built something with AI. He rebuilt the whole thing, a new app, and it's a big company. And he showed it to his clients, and he triggered this by vibe coding on his own on weekends and spending a ton of time. And he told me that he felt like an imposter because there's so much hype and there's so much people posting that he's like, I don't know. I feel left out of this whole thing. And I was feeling like an imposter at the same time. And I feel that this curve, sometimes you hit something and then a new model comes out or a new tool and you get back to, you know, the peak of Mount Stupid. You're trying to understand things and rebuilding, and you just stay in that valley of despair. And I like your advice because that was my conclusion. It's start building. Like, we're all whinging it. Like, this is new. So no one's going to have 10 years of experience. It's new. So we're all experiencing it, and start building and stop feeling like an imposter because we're pretty much all going at the same pace. Some are going a little quicker, but it's not like there's 10 years of experience in that domain.
Yeah, and there's also like a lot of storytelling on LinkedIn. So at
True.
some point, like, just focus on your own business.
Yeah.
Test things. Stop when it doesn't work. Try again when there's a new model or something. And chat with people. That one thing we try and do and what helps is chat with your peers, like companies that are trying to solve the same problem and they are testing AI, etc. That's a lot more. Find the people that are good at it or that you are inspired from, etc. But chat about real problems, real tests, what they learned, what you did, kind of build this network of a few people that you trust, learn together. It's going to be a lot more insightful than 5 LinkedIn posts that hype such and such company. So find your people around you and build on your side, share your learnings kind of at that scale, honestly, is often very powerful.
Can you share, just to end this topic about AI, one concrete example where you think that AI created real value at Allen? Well, you talked a little bit about
I think
about the fact that, you know, pushing something with cursor in prod.
Yeah, I think there's on how we operate, and then there's product. I think there are 3. I think first one is internal productivity for everyone. So we have a tool called Dust. There's actually co-founded by the former CPO of Allen. So we know them pretty well, and we're early adopters, and it works very well. And so we have, I should know the stats, but 100%, 90% of the company that uses it every week. And so like having everyone really use AI every day on their communication, their synthesis, then etc. So that's really level adoption 0 or 1 of like internal tooling for kind of basic AI usage. Let's call it basic, and starting to create a system of like, help me write this cold email, but based on and this and that. That we've been cracking probably last year or something. There's been level 0, but ton of value on a lot of use cases from hiring to marketing and so. Then level 2 is on our internal operations in the wide sense. On the one hand, it can be efficiency in rethinking how we operate. Designers on Cursor is a great example. We completely shift how we do it. Another amazing example, if you have been following Allen, we have a marmot. We call it the marmot, like the kind of a unexpected bear-looking animal that we love.
Groundhog, sort of.
It's a marmot in French-ish or maybe English. That's how we call it at least. Now this is fully AI generated. And we have a tool internally. Anyone can say, "I want a marmot riding a horse with this sticker with a dragon in the background," and you get this. Kind of insane. So our whole internal and external marketing is like completely supercharged with AI. And before that, we were sometimes potentially hesitating or working with agencies, etc. So on this, it's fully like we have a tool on that, and it's really amazing. We have a team of creative AI builders that's truly amazing. Our brand is really strong thanks to that. And so that's another example of like a full practice that got completely revolutionized in like 12 months. So like, from designers to marketing, but all, I think it's the same on the hiring internally, like all notes are taken automatically, pushed internally in our ATS, etc. So that's kind of the internal operations and revamping how we work. And the last level for us is customer facing products, or at least products. And for us, it's customer support, for instance, is one I mentioned, like probably our biggest success story, or at least our most visible one externally, where we're able to scale Alan effectively. Otherwise, we'd have to scale this care team, and it would be like super hard given our growth. And we're able to answer questions 24/7 with high satisfaction with AI, and it's really amazing to see. And we also have like big wins internally on less visible topics, on like fraud or automated parsing of documents, that really accelerate our internal operations, enable us to scale as well. And so for us, AI, we've been pushing it for a while across this stack. Keep on doubling down for next year. So pretty exciting.
Nice. Well, thank you for the insights. I'd like to get some reflection and advice from you. If you were to look back at your journey, what's one belief about product that, you completely changed your mind on from when you started?
I think the one that comes to mind, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but it's really about this notion of roles, which you discussed a bit. I think that's more product leadership lesson. Maybe we can get into a product one, but at least one thing that our culture pushes a lot, and Jean Shaw is very good at that, our CEO, is hiring people, not roles. And it's very uncomfortable, but it can be very powerful. One example is like when we meet someone that we think is very smart, very strong, we'll aim to hire them, even if we don't have a role right away, and we make it work. And that's really uncomfortable as a leader, because as a leader internally, you'd love to have like a very structured and clear and beautiful and well thought through hiring plan. And I need those 3 people, and this person doesn't fit any of that, so it doesn't so too bad. But actually that's not right. And so it's like, what matters is great people. So this person is great, let's bring them in. Yeah. And it's up to you to figure out how you make it work. Extremely counterintuitive at first, but extremely powerful. And we had like some amazing hires we got into Alan this way. Some that didn't work, but some worked extremely well. And that's been really great learning on the more leadership team setup side. It's somewhat similar to like people, not roles on the team. Like you don't have, it's actually counterproductive to aim for like a very rigid team structure. Like I need a PM, a designer, a data scientist, and 4 engineers for this team. Like it's nicer, it feels safer, it's very clear, it's very rigid, and it fits in your spreadsheet. But in the end, like, you missed a designer, and actually the data scientist is better fit on this other team, but maybe the team works, and actually what is the right team? And so there's really this idea of team dynamics, setting up the best team at the right time on the right topic, that is a lot more challenging than just some type of rigid approach. And that really changed my thinking, and it's pretty hard to operate, but when it works, it's magic. And so we're trying to get better at this over time.
I hope you get people listening to this podcast and will want to work for you. If you had to make one bold prediction about product teams, how they will operate in like 5 years, like what would you say?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, we've discussed that quite a bit. I think this idea of like product builders augmented with AI, but still experts on some topics that go super deep. I think this is still true. I think one more contrarian idea that I don't think is discussed that much. I had this chat with a few people on my team actually. I think the senior leader, the senior product leader role, that is not management, but that is really taking very hard topics, able to align many people and to crack complex problems at scale, are still going to be there. Like, and in a more classic setting, could be like the group product management role. Like when you are really like in charge of like a meaty topic, you know, the goal is not to manage people, to crack a hard problem with people around you, and in the future with people and AI. And I think this kind of role where you take a big problem and it's really a mix of very hard strategic discussions, people topics, stakeholder management, like this messy, ambiguous situation will stay, and those roles will become even more important. So it's not just like product builders there and experts there. There's also like kind of this glue, probably fewer people as well, but doing it at even more high leverage and higher scale. It's even harder to do once this transition goes along, but will be really key.
And what would be your advice for people who are trying to take leadership roles? Independent, I'm not, you know?
I think I'm very biased by my own experience, but I think what works well is to bank different experiences that you can rely on, so that you build your intuition, pattern recognition, and don't have too many biases. In the sense that if you've only worked at one company, done one type of role, you're really good at that, but you're probably pretty biased. What helped me is actually to get a bit of a slap in the face coming to Alan of like, what you've done in the past is not the only way, and probably not the best way at times. And so changing context is one. I would say ideally working at a fast growth company helps you see different contexts without changing companies, which is kind of a neat trick. I've been at Allen for more than 7 years. I had like 4 roles ish, and to some extent, I could say I've been working at 4 companies given the different roles, different sizes, etc. So if you work at a fast growth company, you actually compound your learnings a ton. And I will also say alternate between being a PM and taking more leadership or management responsibilities. At Allen, we really encourage that. Like, can be very deep with a small team on a hard problem, and then 2 years later you actually take a bigger team, and it's a slightly different leverage for you. It's like aligning more people and a wider scope, but also technical depth and more iterations. And then you may take a community lead role, as I have, which is closest to management, and then you can rotate again. And so it keeps your skills fresh, and it also pushes you to see things from different lenses and having different contexts. And over time, that's what makes you a great leader, is having seen many different contexts, having intuitions, because in the end, what matters as a leader is to be right often. And
more than wrong.
I mean, you don't aim for 100%, but if you can be much more about, like, much higher than 50, it's good. And that comes from having seen different things, etc., and being able to manage both kind of the more hard topics of like data and strategy and business plans, etc., but also a lot of the softer ones, like coaching and managing and hiring, etc. And for that, you need a lot of experiences and knowing yourself along the way, and then you grow as a leader. And the beauty of it is you never finish. You can only get a bit better every year. But if you do a bunch of what I said, I think you'll be in a good place.
Okay, to wrap things up, I have a couple of rapid fire questions.
All right, go for it.
So aside from Alan, what's one product, digital or physical, that you're currently obsessed with?
One that I've been obsessed with is Arc browser, but they shut down recently, and I'm very sad.
You and me both.
That's been.
But I'm still using it.
Yeah, and
I'm not gonna stop.
So I'm still using it, but so maybe you can still use it. But to me, it really solved my problem of being more efficient in the browser, and I really love this product. And I mean, it's probably the product I use the most every day, and it's been a fresh kind of take on it. So I don't know what's actually gonna happen with it, with the shutdown and acquisition, but
I haven't tried Dia. Have you tried it?
I tried it, but it's a very different take.
Yeah, okay.
It's really like how to put AI at the front and center of the browser. So it's like, and that's why they did it. It's like it's a huge step in the future. I like their take on Chrome that is actually optimized for power users. And I mean, I use it all the time, and I know the split screen, the different spaces. For me, it's a dream. Very geeky, but
me
love
too.
it.
No, I can't. There was a huge heartbreak when they said they were discontinuing the product. What's cool is that it still works, and until it dies, I swear I tried so many other ones, but it doesn't work.
So the one, if you have an alternative, let me know.
Same here. Be honest. When was the last time that you held a meeting because writing a memo was just too hard?
I'm gonna say I don't know, because I do, like this week I had 2 very important pairings with someone in the team. Like we chat half an hour about a very strategic kind of input to the business plan for next year. So we chat twice for half an hour. We go super deep. Yeah. And the output is a very clear comment in a very important discussion. And that's really how I operate. Like there's this, it's this mix. It's like you do have a meeting when we wouldn't have managed it just asynchronously. So in this case, we went live. But then we always put it in the right discussion. And so honestly now it's maybe cliche, but it's so ingrained in how I work that I can't do it differently.
That's awesome.
And I And also, as a leader, I can't show a wrong example. So for me, it became so natural. Like there's no decision that are taken like randomly. Well, maybe it's too naive from me and too biased. If something else comes up, I'll tell you, but that would be my answer for now.
Okay. Do you have any red flags when you interview PMs or product roles? Like, what's one red flag?
Yeah, I don't want to give them away. No, I'm kidding. Thinking of my interview questions. I think it's there are different types of PMs. Like at Allen, we really push on this PM role that we've discussed, like very strong ownership, autonomy, and moving to a world of product builders with AI. So like if someone is not truly excited about leaner teams with fewer people and working with AI tools, like that's not going to work at Allen.
Okay.
Could work somewhere else, but it's not going to work with us. If someone is really excited about a bit more project management skills and concept like Scrum and digital transformation, stuff like that, that's not what we do. Can be great somewhere else. That's not how we operate. And so it's really about, is there a fit between how we want to operate and what we're looking for? And then the real red flag is we have a tendency to be very structured and analytical on. Yeah. And so if in an interview you're not like super sharp in the logical links of what you're saying, or like usually it's a flag, maybe not red, but pretty orange, because you'll get challenged so hard at the end. Like if your reasoning is not sharp, like you will go nowhere, because the one will just challenge you to the end. If you're not capable of like having a very clear reasoning of why, you will just not succeed. And so if from the interview, like we ask for examples of what did you build, and we expect like this was the context, here's what we did, and this worked, and this is why, etc. And if the story is not clear, like it's not going to work. Okay. And is there any I'm a book nerd, so I like even though I like to really ship, I also like the theory and conceptual side. Is there a book that you recommend to like everyone, or that you really, really like? Doesn't have to be about product. Like sometimes some things, okay. You know? Maybe I'll give you a few. I really, let me see. Product-wise, I think Working Backwards from Amazon is really powerful. And we actually got into
I was going to ask if it was inspired by Amazon, the fact of discussing things publicly, like the 5-pager, for example.
So I don't know if that's... I actually don't know. Yeah. Because it wasn't there when it was established. I think it was... I think this came up independently, but it's pretty similar. I think the Working Backwards language and a lot of our leadership principles are actually heavily inspired or bluntly stolen from Amazon. Yeah. But not everything, but a good half. And we're totally fine with that, because I think they do a lot of things right, but some things that we wanted to do differently. So that's one on product. One on management. The Making of a Manager is a book I really like. It's written by Julie Zhuo, who is the former VP design of Facebook, Meta. And it's a really good, palatable book for new managers. And even I go back to it, and honestly, it's powerful. So that's one if you want to rethink your management practice or are starting to manage. And then personal books, couple directions. I've really loved biographies by Stefan Zweig recently. Okay. If you read the story of Magellan or the story of Fouché, amazing stories. Like it's really, you brush up on history, which is nice, but also like just those stories those are page turners, well written, amazing stories, real stories. It's an amazing mix. So that is pretty powerful. I'm a big science fiction geek as well. Yeah. So I've quite a lot of those. I love the Neil Bank stories. And so those awesome. And you can just type that and it'll be good.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Last question. If you had to choose a product that ship fast with bugs or a product that ships late but is perfect.
Should I answer that? I don't know. The answer is it depends. But in general, we want to put a high bar. So I would say at least a product that's delightful. Even if some bugs somewhere.
Great answer. All right. Awesome. Man, thank you so much for all the insights. It's been super nice. And I'll put all the links at the end of the video. So hopefully you'll get people hyped about working for Alan. And again, like as you said, when there's amazing people, you always find something to do, which is cool.
Yeah, that's the spirit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup for listening to this episode. A few things from this conversation I can't stop thinking about. One, I hear all this talk about the hybrid PM, and guys, it's already here. I mean, Alan has designers pushing code to production, PMs running their own SQL queries, teams operating without traditional roles. AI didn't cause this shift. It accelerated something they'd already committed to. 2, culture is infrastructure. The real reason AI works at Alan isn't the tools. It's that the team was already built around autonomy, transparency, and trust. You can't bolt that on after the fact. And 3, and this one's for anyone feeling overwhelmed by the pace of this, myself included, Thomas said something simple that I keep coming back to. We're all winging it. I mean, no one has 10 years of experience in this. So stop waiting to feel ready and start building. Thank you so much. Please subscribe and leave a comment if you want more conversations like this. I'm Cedric, this is The French Product. À bientôt!